Good afternoon, everybody. Has it really been 7 years? I don't know, but I recognise some places. I'd like to say a couple of things today before answering any questions that you may have. The first thing I'd like to say, of course, is to offer my sincere congratulations to the young man who's going to succeed me, Adam Kimber. I congratulate him and I wish him all the very best for what will be a difficult road ahead. The second thing I'd like to do is offer thanks to several groups of people. The first thanks that I would like to offer is to the staff of the DPP. Not only the legal professional staff, but the administrative staff, the girls on the front desk, and our fantastic Wazzies. All of them have done an outstanding job in my tenure, during my tenure as Director, and the public of South Australia can feel rightly proud that their interests are being looked over by a fantastic group of professionals. I thank them for the work that they've done and the support that they've offered me during my tenure. There are individuals amongst that group who I won't identify and embarrass today, but I will speak to at a later stage and offer my personal thanks to them. I'd like to thank SAPOL for the relationship that we've developed, particularly with the Commissioner Mel Hyde, who I've formed a close working and personal relationship with, and I think recent results particularly indicate how well our two organisations have worked together, and long may that continue. The third group may surprise you because I'd like to thank the media. First of all, the electronic media. I haven't got much to say about the television because they've probably got more footage of me walking along the street in and out of court than anybody could ever use in 2 lifetimes. But for the radio, I suppose particularly Mrs. Bevan and Abraham on 891, the ABC, and Mr. Leon Biner on 5AA, they have been generous with their time in allowing me to perform what I think has hitherto been an unrecognised aspect of the Director's position, and that is the educative role. I've been able to, in using their time, address the public on issues of what we do, why we do it, and attempt to explain some of the vagaries of the criminal justice system. And to them I say thank you. As to the print media, well, that's a slightly different story. Notwithstanding the obviously farm-fed article in today's local paper, it's probably fair to say that I've had a reasonable to middling run with the press. I'd like to nominate Mr. Nigel Hunt from the Sunday Mail, who's always been willing to give me the time and print space to put our view on various issues that have become matters of public comment. So I thank him for that. He's done it in a fair way. I'd like now also to thank the public of South Australia, and that's a fairly nebulous description, but it's difficult for me to explain how much support they have been to both me and my family in this turbulent journey of the last 7 years, particularly during the more interesting first couple of years. The number of people who would ring the office and offer their support, or who would send emails and offer their support, or who would startle me in the street by tapping me on the shoulder suddenly and say, keep your chin up, keep going, don't let the bastards get you down, or words to that effect, has been fantastic. It has been sustaining, and I can't thank all of those people, those anonymous people, enough. Without their help, I think my tenure would have been far shorter. So thank you to those people. Various friends of ours who we've made in South Australia have sent us messages of support and love, and we thank them for those. I'd like to thank my family, who have been a rock of support in these times, which haven't always been easy. I'd like to thank my wife, who has gone through every inch of this journey with me, with the occasional complaint, but mostly enormous support, so I thank you for that. My children have been a joy, and if anyone can bring you back to reality and remind you as to what is important in life and what's not, it's teenage children, and they've done that for me without question. And I think perhaps the only regret I have about the time I've spent in the office is that when we came to South Australia, both of my children were young teenagers, and somewhere along the line during my tenure, when I was so preoccupied with affairs of the criminal justice system, I grew up. And one day I turned around and they'd gone. They'd left home. And I regret the time that I've missed with them during my time in the office. But that's the only regret. So the job has had its challenges. I've given it absolutely everything I've got. I've tried my hardest to live up to the expectations not only of the office but of the community and of the government. I'm proud of the achievements that have occurred over the last 7 years. They're not my achievements. They're the achievements of a team of fantastic people. And whatever we've achieved together. We have revolutionised the funding in the office. We have radically improved staffing in the office. I think we've regained some of the respect as an institution that the office was unfortunately losing during the turbulent periods of my predecessor. I think the morale of the office has improved immeasurably, and I'm quite confident that given all of those factors, that subject to the constraints of budget, which is a perennial problem, I'm quite confident that I'm leaving the office in a very strong state and in a good way to fight for justice in the future. So I wish the good ship DPP and all who sail in her calm seas and an absence of bikie pirates. Thank you very much.
Stephen, first up, obviously with your staff gathered here today and the office has stopped, and quite rightly so, clearly it's an emotional time for you. Is there any bitterness with this that you didn't get reappointed?
This is probably not a time for recriminations. I'm disappointed, yes, of course. I love the job. I enjoyed doing it. If I may be so bold to say, I think I did a good job. At least no one's told me that I haven't. So to the extent that I'll no longer do it, there's disappointment. But I don't want to in any way rain on Adam's parade. This is a time for him, and I'm sure and confident that he will do an excellent job.
Mr. Pallaras, well, as you say, it doesn't seem like 7 years since we were first standing here, but do you think that the event at the beginning of those 7 years, being introduced as Elliott Ness and then subsequent battles with the government, do you think that as far back as then it made it very difficult for you to come into that job and probably put the writing on the wall early that this would be a one-term tenure?
I suppose in retrospect that's a fair assessment, but one hopes that during those years that we went through since those early days, that people would react and respond sensibly, and that any issues of personality would be subsumed by the greater issues of getting the job done. That's what I'd hoped. I don't know, and still don't know, what the cause of that relentless attack on me was. I don't know. I don't understand it, and the silliness of it is demonstrated really over the last 2 or 3 years, where I've had such an excellent working relationship, not only with the government but with the current attorney. And I feel as if I've achieved as much in the last 3 years, when I've been allowed to do a job, than I did in the first 4. So, while this is not a time of recriminations, I look back with some regret on the early years.
Were you a marked man from perhaps 2 years into the term, and most of us here covered some pretty volatile stories, and also the volatility between you and either the attorney or the premier of the day. Did that make you a marked man for reappointment?
You'd have to ask the person holding the marker. I don't know.
Do you think you were though? Do you think there was an element of that?
Well, look, one tries to understand when the Premier, when the Auditor General, when the Treasurer come after you with sticks as to why. And as I said before, I still do not understand why. I think there must have been a reason, at least in their minds. I suspect, doing the best that I can guess, is that it was a turf war as to who was going to have the biggest influence over the law and order issue, and whether I should have any, I don't know. That's my supposition. But as to whether I was a marked man, I can probably say that I was not on too many people's Christmas cards list. So if that answers your question, it's about as best as I can do.
Did you feel it was an insult to you to have to reapply for your job?
I can't say that it was an insult, Tom. When I was seeking an indication from government, and this is going back when Atkinson was attorney, for some years I've been seeking an early indication. I ultimately didn't get a response until fairly recently, when I was told that the position would be advertised. Now, that's entirely within the government's prerogative. But the position was advertised, the process was gone through, and a decision was made. And the government accept that, again, which is in their prerogative. What concerned me was why they felt it necessary to advertise at all. And that's when I made a public statement, and certainly privately to the attorney and to others, that I would have regarded a decision to advertise as a vote of no confidence in the job that I've done. Now, I was subsequently assured, not only by the attorney, but by other senior members of government, that I should not regard it in that fashion, that I should not regard it as a vote of no confidence, and that it was the government's way of ensuring that they tested the field. Taking the attorney and the other senior government officer at their word, I then applied for the position. The result is now, as we all know, and I am delighted for Adam, but I'm personally disappointed.
Do you feel effectively that you've been sacked?
Do I feel that I've been sacked? Well, I'm no longer director as from next week, and my contract is not extended. Using the word sacked, I suppose, is an emotive way of saying it. My contract hasn't been extended. Position is.
Are you satisfied with the process that was used for the selection process? There was or at least one member of that panel who you had previously had quite a public clash with. Were you satisfied that it was a fair and reasonable process?
Look, to make any comment about that now would diminish Adam's achievement. I don't want to do that.
What's
You've
next,
mentioned
please?
your regrets to do with family. Is there anything that you would change that you have done as a DPP?
Is there anything I would have
That
changed?
you would change if you could go back and do something differently?
I stand by the decisions that I was making in the early days. I think when I joined the office, as many people who are in this room now know, we were on shaky grounds. One of my first jobs when I became director was to speak personally with every individual in the office so that I could understand the basis of their concerns. Their concerns were for their future. My concern, therefore, was for the future existence of the office. I felt compelled to secure the base. And if that meant contradicting government comments about us, uninformed government comments, whether they came from government, opposition or independent members, I felt it was necessary to do so. The morale issue was a vital issue in those days, and people had to see that somebody would speak for them in the face of many who spoke against them.
Did you feel that you might have fell on too strong in that initial press club speech with Rob Ball handing out the speech, and you were making a very pointed attack on the Premier and Senator Xenophon, or you might have been a member of the State Parliament at the time, but it was certainly made a few headlines right from the outset.
I made not many friends in that, but no, I do not think it was too strong. That was the urgency which I genuinely felt at the time. I didn't want to come to work one Monday morning and find I didn't have an office to run. And it was as bad as that. Senior people in this office, some of whom are still here, some of whom have moved on, were telling me that they could not go on under the pressures that the office was then under, and that it was time, and these are my words, for us to draw a line in the sand. There was no option as I saw it. It was either do that or give away any notion of an independent office. And it's a bit like being pregnant. You can't be partly pregnant, and you can't be partly independent. We had to stand up for the independence of the office. And if that took some hard, straight talk, that was a price I was prepared to pay, and maybe painful today.
So at that time, did you consider quitting?
No, I did not consider quitting, although it was a question that I was probably asked on the hour, every day. I did not consider quitting. I took my responsibilities to the office more seriously than that. People were depending on me, and I felt that I had a job to do, and quitting wasn't going to make it.
When you say people stopped you in the street and said, "Don't let the bastards get you down," who were the bastards?
Oh, well, you're right. I'm not going to call people bastards. I think you've got a fair idea.
Who do you think they were? Do you think they were political bastards?
Oh, certainly. Oh, yes.
Not Bible bastards, political bastards.
What's next for you? Are you planning to stay in Australia, or South Australia, or are you moving back to Perth, or are you in limbo? Or?
Both my preference and my family's preference is to stay in South Australia. We have grown to love the place. We're comfortable where we are, and as I say, the public have treated us wonderfully. However, we will have to go where there are work opportunities.
There's some scuttlebutt about the ICAC. Is that something that you consider? It might be some while off.
Look, if and when that offer is ever made, and it hasn't been, despite the scope, but I would certainly look at it, certainly consider it. It's an interest that I've expressed publicly. It's an area that I've had a lot of experience in, and it's an area that I think I could make a contribution. But this is not about the job advertisement. If they offer it to me, I'll certainly consider it, but it has not been.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. We done?
Yep.
Thank you, everybody.